Blake, what was the stickiest piece of gear we've ever gotten into the shop?
No.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who knows what happens to gear when it melts. And I'm here with your other co-host, the only man stronger than He-Man, Toby Walters.
Oh, He-Man, that is a throwback right there.
I thought that one would get you.
I loved He-Man in the 80s when I was growing up, and I remember playing with He-Man action figures, like having them hang off the door handle and such.
Yeah, see, I was like, how do I get a pop culture reference that's really going to resonate?
I mean, did you have to Google that, or did you know He-Man?
I knew of him. I knew strong dude, barely any clothes, something with some lightning strikes and a sword. He was kind of on Cartoon Network at back in my day. So
okay, here's your other pop quiz then.
Wait a minute, I just passed. I don't want to take another one.
You only half passed. Who was He-Man's female counterpart?
Man, I look like a sexist jerk. I don't remember her name. I don't know. Who is it?
She-Ra.
She-Ra.
So on the subject of She-Ra, no, it actually has absolutely nothing to do with that. Going back to our opening of the stickiest piece of gear we've ever received. What is it, Blake?
So this was very early on in my time at Church Gear. It was a moving light, and it just was like you picked it up and you weren't moving anywhere with it because it was stuck to your hands forever. Like, this is yours now. Go forth and take it.
So early on in Church Gear, because we've been going a few years now, we buy gear from, audio, video, lighting, all the categories. But very early on, we hadn't bought any moving lights yet. So a church in the Nashville area actually
who will remain unnamed.
And they said, hey, we've got a whole bunch of Elation 575s, most of which work. Now, Blake, we've heard this many times. And for all our tech directors listening out there, when you tell us that most of your moving lights work, fool me once, fool me twice, but no more. You may not be intentionally lying to us. We love you, but
they just don't work. It's just moving lights. Very specifically, we're very picky about them now because they don't work or they're sticky. And there's only so many times I can, use a whole pack of baby wipes to wipe my hands clean.
And we have yet to invest in a fire hose, but that may be the next step. Or maybe a car wash. Maybe we could run them through a car wash.
I bet even if you did that, you could not get the stick off. They definitely wouldn't work anymore. Ooh, that would be a very pretty car wash. You could run them all in at once, light them all up, do a whole show. I'm sure that would work.
So this church contacted us and they said, hey, we've got all these Elation 575s. And we also have this Digico S21.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh, well, we'll take the Digico. And if you're going to sell this a Digico, yeah, we'll make you an offer on the lights as well. So we put together the offer. And then the church said, well, we're going to go ahead and hold on to the Digico, but you can come get the lights. And I'm like, awesome. Okay. So, I mean, it's in town. These are still good lights. They're still, just one generation old at this point.
And we want to help out.
We want to work with any church we can. So I take our van over to this church, meet the tech director, and he points out all the lights, and I grab the first one, and oh my gosh, it's super sticky.
This was the day that I learned what tacky meant. Tacky is also like tack.
Yeah, because we, when selling these things, we don't want to necessarily say they are horribly sticky. We just say they're tacky.
Oh, man. Just like that sweater you wore to Christmas service, these are tacky as well.
That's right. Now, I've learned there are reasons that lights get sticky. And I'd actually experienced this with the old Digidesign Control 24 DAW control surface. And Blake, I could show you a picture of this board. You'd be like, oh, I recognize that.
Oh, okay.
But the sides of it are made with the same kind of plastic. And what happens is this plastic degrades over time and becomes sticky.
They need to stop using that.
So I bought one of those Digidesign boards years ago, and it was in a guy's studio who had cats.
Oh, no.
So you can
I'm going to
imagine.
get blamed for this too, aren't I? Because
Yeah.
I'm the only person in the company that has cats, I think.
It's just creepy, Blake.
What can I say? They're just so much low maintenance than dogs.
So we load up all these lights, and we get them back and we test them, and half of them work, half of them needed some help, and we were able to get most of them fixed up and working again, which is great. And I think we spent like 2 or 3 hours on one of them just trying to get the stick off.
Well, because like in good conscience, I'm thinking if I don't want to pick this up, I'm not selling it either. And so one whole pack of baby wipes later.
Yeah, at that point, we just said, okay, we're going to have to advertise these as sticky. There's no way around it. So it took a while for me to think, didn't Blake, you have a part-time job as a church janitor once upon a time?
I did, because I think everyone, even as we've continued to grow, I think everyone can kind of say they, like if they weren't a church tech director, they still worked at a church for a time. And I did work for a church as a janitor for 2 years in high school.
So, I mean, did you ever have to clean moving lights in your church? I would think like as a church janitor, they're like, look, and especially you being the high school kid, it's like, look, buddy, these things are sticky, clean them up.
You'd be surprised. I actually had something much worse. It was take all of the trash out from the preschool wing to the sanctuary. And that was a lot of trash. I actually never had to clean a moving light. I got lucky.
Blake, I hate to break it to you, but
Don't say it.
It was your church where you were the janitor that sold me these sticky lights.
I knew this was somehow going to become my fault. And it's honestly, this is so poetic. That's where they came from. I really don't remember the moving lights, but look, I was moving trash, taking trash to the dumpster. Maybe I spilt it one time. Who knows?
And I didn't realize this until after I hired you. So I hate to break it to you on this episode, but you're so fired.
And that's all she wrote, folks. I'm out. But I'm back in because someone has to introduce our guest. He has worked in TV, concert tours, trade shows, and in church for a time. He's toured all over the world. He was stopped at the border of the U.S. and was not let in because he couldn't quote John 3:16. Oh my gosh.
What border is he?
If this is
this a border in Alabama?
I want this to be, okay, that was good. I want this to be the truth. I was a luggage driver for Neil Diamond.
What? Sweet Caroline?
Okay.
Wait, pause. Blake, do you know who Neil Diamond is?
So I'm not, okay.
Did you know who Neil Diamond was before a previous guest said he was working with Neil Diamond?
So let me say the truth. These are microseconds in my brain. First thought was, that's the guy that sells the diamonds on The Bachelor. Like,
oh my,
they give away the diamonds to the contestants. And then I went, no, that's not it. Again, microseconds. Second,
listening audience, Blake at churchgear.com is his email. Please send him shameful letters. I just called you out.
You know what? That's fine. We'll see what happens. Second micro thought. Neil, I was like, oh, this is that Diamond guy. You got a friend in the Diamond business, the Nashville ads. And after all that, I then did remember that Neil Diamond was a singer. So I had to get there.
Do you know the song Sweet Caroline? Ba-ba-dum. There you go.
Totally.
That's Neil Diamond.
Thankfully, I had a buddy who dated a girl named Caroline, and so I know that song. Let's see. Going back to our guest. I once jumped a 15-passenger van off the freeway. I was once blackballed with a customer for having a beer on my off time at a bowling alley. I was at a bowling alley last night.
Was that like a Southern Baptist church? Was
Probably
that the client? So. Man.
I have been in lighting and production professionally for 23 years. There's no way he's that old. Now introducing Robby Kurtz.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Robby.
Yeah.
I think you win for the craziest collection of possible truths and a lie.
There's been a good bit of good ones, but you almost all of yours are pretty gold. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I mean, let's just take off the I've been in lighting and production for 23 years. If that's his lie.
Do you really think he's that old?
Oh, I know how old he is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll take it off.
I mean, you see, he has salt and pepper in his stubble.
I do. Yeah. I should have clean shaven.
See,
today.
but he still has hair. So
and I know he's been around the lighting industry for a long time.
Okay. I'm going to actually, I'm ready to knock off that he was blackballed by a customer for having a beer. I bet that was true, sadly.
I bet that's true too.
Yep.
And I bet it was Southern Baptist Church. Probably with a janitor that doesn't clean sticky lights either.
Probably so. I once jumped a 15-passenger van off the freeway. Does that mean
was he driving, and was this like Dukes of Hazzard style?
Yeah, all right, I want clarification.
I know you can't tell us if this is a lie, but in your mind.
In this scenario, true or not, it's like going airborne for a little bit?
So it was airborne for a little bit, but it was off of I didn't realize that it was the end of the freeway.
Okay. So I have a cousin in insurance. He will not insure 12 to 15.
Wait. He just told us it was a scene from Speed, the movie with Keanu Reeves.
Did he say that?
Jumps off the end of the freeway.
Okay.
So I'm a little suspicious now. I mean, was Sandra Bullock in the passenger seat with you? We'll find out.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will.
That was a good catch. Okay. Well, I was going to say that could be true, but all right, let's keep it for a second. I'm going to take off the luggage driver for Neil Diamond. I bet he did that. That sounds random.
That is very oddly specific, so I feel like it's true.
Toured all over the world. That's kind of subjective.
Yeah.
Let's take it off.
Okay.
Worked in TV and churches and trade shows. Yeah, you ain't getting me with that one. So really, was he stopped at the border of the U.S. because he couldn't quote John 3:16, or did he jump a 15?
And is that story mixed with the beer story? Like, could he not quote John 3:16? Because he's
too
supposedly
inebriated.
a good Christian boy.
Okay. All right. I am going to say, here, let's split the difference so one of us at least is right. I'm going to go the van because my cousin has told me how you won't insure them because people that drive them are so inexperienced. It's just barely over the limit where you can still legally drive it without a license, and people crash them all the time.
All right. I'll say the U.S. border, John 3:16. Tell us, Robby.
So the lie is actually part of the John 3:16 story. I actually did have to say John 3:16 at the border at El Paso to get in because the guy didn't believe me.
Do you look Hispanic?
Well, no. So the issue was I flew down to work with this church like in the middle of Mexico, and they had to drive me back because they couldn't fly me in. And when they did, I got food poisoning from like a taco cart at this place that was super genuine. So I was feeling super rough, and I had my sunglasses on. He's like, "Hey, you know, pull up the border." He's like, "You've been partying a lot, huh?" You know, it's like, "I was wearing sunglasses," and I took them off. I was like, "No, sir, I'm just not feeling well. You know, I got a headache." He's like, "Man, you've been to Colombia, huh? What were you doing there?" I was like, "Oh, well, you know, I toured with this Christian band, and we were there." He's like, "South Africa, was that the same thing? You were just touring with a what was this? A worship band?" I was like, "Yeah, you know, this Christian band thing." "What were you doing in Brazil?" I was like, "Well, you know, I was with a Christian band." I was like, he's like, "Tell me John 3:16 right now." And so I told him, and he's like, all right, you can go. And so that was it. He let me through.
So you did have to quote it, but
I did have to
let
quote
you
it,
in.
but they did let me in.
And which translation did you use? I mean, that's
The Message. I was like,
okay.
"Yo, G."
Whoa.
I was like, "You know,
He had the
I'm kidding.
sunglasses on. He had to use the message. Dang it. So Toby wins that one. We probably should keep track of these.
I mean, you know this now. I'm usually right.
Okay, tell me this. Let's skip over that. Was the passenger van from that movie Speed or whatever?
No, actually, it was. So we were in Houston, and it was one of these like super wide freeways, had like 6 lanes, and we were trying to get this guy to pick up a prescription for his back because he was like his back was hurting, and I was there with Daystar Television Network, and we were doing a thing down there, and so nobody's buckled in the back. We've got like 6 guys back there, and I see this. He's like, "Hey, there's a place right here. There's a place right here," and so I just start moving over, thinking like this is a frontage road. I can just get off. And I'm looking over my shoulder, making sure that like I'm not going to hit people as I'm doing it. Like they're like, whoa. And next thing I look forward, and we're going into this concrete ditch at like a 45-degree angle. And I literally went in there, stuffed the tire so hard we got air, and then we were up in the air, and everybody's kind of floating over me. And then we came down and like slammed on the curb, and then I was on the frontage road. And so then like.
And you lived to tell about it?
We did. I just had to rip one piece of little plastic off, and the car was fine.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you are a living legend because the Holy Spirit kept you from being a insurance claim.
Yes.
That is insane.
Yeah, the guy that needed the back stuff, though, his back was really hurting after that. So it was like,
I bet
he was
you
like,
just ruined his back.
boom, and he's like, I could hear him, you know. I was like,
Is
so-
either you popped it right back into place or you made it 10 times as bad.
I know. I felt terrible.
Robbie,
but,
I'm in awe, and I'll never ride in a car with you. I'm so terrified, but like you are amazing that you pulled that off, bro.
Yeah, thanks. I was so glad we didn't lay it down and we didn't drag through
How long driving after that did you have to like let the hype kind of fade out of your body?
I pretty much pulled over right away, and we all just kind of got a breather. And I was like, "Oh goodness, I can't believe that just happened."
And is this where the beer comes into the story?
No, I was actually working as a freelancer for Daystar after I had left Daystar Television Network, which was like a Christian network. Like they're essentially like the team. They're like the rival for TBN or God TV or whatever.
Okay,
and it was in Dallas. But I was with a bunch of people that worked there. We went bowling, and I had one beer while I was there, and then it got back to Marcus and Joni Lamb, and then they never brought me back. I was blacklisted.
Man, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
That is rough. Did Jesus not drink alcohol?
You know, I'm not sure that he had beer. I think
He
that
never had
was
a Pilsner,
yeah,
just
and especially at the bowling alley.
I get it. So, Robby, you're 23 years in lighting and production. Kind of give us the 30,000 foot overview. Like, where'd you start and what are you doing now?
So right out of high school, I was going to try and go to college. I tried twice, and to no avail.
We've met a lot of you.
Yes, dropped out both times. I was sleeping in class and stuff. I just wasn't into school, and I was going because that's what they were telling you had to do if you were going to be something, right? And so I was doing like steel fabrication, working at a rebar place, and lost my job because of this is living in California at the time, and so we didn't have rain a lot. There was so much rain. There was the El Nino year,
Oh, El Nino. I remember that.
And so because of that, like the freeways, they couldn't do any work, and so all of the rebar stuff dried up, and so I got laid off, and I was engaged to be married. This
dried
is being,
up. Sorry,
dried
I
up.
mean,
yeah. No pun intended. Yeah,
perfect.
And so at 19 years old, we're engaged, gonna be married, and I don't have a job. And so I'd started helping out at our church in the youth group. I would help lead worship and stuff, and then they needed help with sound. So I started kind of doing some sound stuff. But everybody wanted to be a sound guy, but nobody was touching the lighting, and the gels were falling out. A lot of the lamps were burned out. The stage was getting dark. And I was like, hey, I'll get up there. I'll start fixing it. And so that was kind of where I found that I enjoyed the lighting piece, the creative piece of it, as well as like working with my hands and that piece of it. So from there, I applied to work for the company it's called Live Light in Fresno, California at the time. And then I was just a shop guy, and that was pretty much it for about 6 months. I walked in one day. Most of our guys were off doing this Home Depot show, and the owner asked me, "Hey, they wouldn't let me use the big dog moving light console at the time, and they wouldn't let me tech
because you were
the
shop
moving
boy.
lights." Right, exactly. They wanted me to learn the ropes before they like put me. It was nice because it wasn't like you move all the way to the front. You've got to work. You got to do your time here first. And so I learned a ton from these guys. They were really great, a lot of experience. And so he said, "Hey, you think you can learn a whole Hog Two, which was like the big desk at the time?"
Ooh, the Hog. Hey, Blake, do you know the Hog?
Yeah, it's the Red Hogs, the Washington football team's new name.
So it's the Road Hog. It's the the stepchild of the grandma, but it's competing companies.
Actually, I do feel like I've heard us mention that
we've had
before.
Road Hogs in the shop before.
Yeah.
So
I probably picked one up and
it's-
had no idea.
It's always fun to see what Blake doesn't know. So
Yeah.
anytime you want to just ask Blake, do you understand what we're talking about?
I might sneak one in though, and suddenly I did know
He
something.
nods and smiles a lot.
Well, the whole Hog 2 was like bomb diggity back then. But
Yeah.
the MA had just started to come out as well. But we were a hog house, so we had all the Hog 2 stuff.
Obviously.
It was
Love
all,
that
and
branding.
everything was on a 3.5-inch floppy back then. So that's how you saved your show.
That's right. Hey, Blake, what's a 3.5-inch floppy?
I do know what a floppy disk is. It was like a storage saver thing that you'd put in your computer, and it had a tiny little case.
Close enough.
That's right.
B minus.
Yeah. Well, anyway, all that to say, I came in. He said, "Hey, can you learn a Hog 2 in 2 weeks?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, maybe." Why? He's like, "Well, does it matter?" I was like, "Well, I guess not."
It should matter.
He's like, "Well, you could be Natalie Cole's new LD." I was like, "All right." Well, so then I just took a lighting console home, and I had one lighting fixture, and then I just walked through the manual and tried to do all the things it told me to do on my kitchen table. And
How old are you at this point?
I was, I would have been 20.
Okay.
Still engaged?
Still, actually, yeah, engaged, almost married, I think.
Okay.
And I got married, and then essentially I went on tour with Natalie Cole for a year, and I was gone about 6 or 7 months of our first year of marriage.
Spoilers. So that actually works. So like you went through the whole manual. That is fascinating to me. Like, do you really go through the whole thing?
I did. I love manuals, though. That's like one of the only books I can finish.
And there's no YouTube back then.
No, there wasn't.
Robby, you are one of my favorite people now. Between wrecking the van but not dying at all, actually reading a manual, only person I know that's done that. That's amazing. Okay. So
It says, now do this. Hold pig, press this. It was like, oh, okay, pig.
do you think if I read a manual over the weekend, I could do the hog?
A manual for what, Blake?
For the hog
For
lighting
the
board.
Totally.
No.
Okay.
Not a chance.
I mean, enough to be able to like make something turn red. My first 2 shows were really rough, and
Yeah,
I thought
how did
for
that go?
sure I was going to get fired. It did. Okay, so I love the guy. He's actually not in lighting anymore because now he's a he's an influencer on Amazon. But this guy, Craig Polson, that was, he's a great guy. But he was 22 and he had been doing lighting far longer than I had. He'd been at this company since he was like 16 and he was doing the Natalie Cole thing, but he quit and left. And so I was filling this position, and it was because the lighting company wanted to try and keep the gear rental. So they didn't want to lose that, but I was working directly for Natalie Cole.
I see. This makes sense business-wise. Okay.
So, you know what I mean? So, and it was like she was going on her 25th anniversary tour, and it was all these Verilights and everything because we were a Verilite dealer back then, which, I mean, that's a bigger story. But all that to say, when they said, hey, here's Craig's show file. All you got to do is get through these 2 shows. We're doing one in Stockton and San Francisco, and then
Stockton.
Oh, dude, it was
you're hitting the garden spots.
And it
Fresno,
wasn't as bad
Stockton.
as it is now. Now it's even worse. But like, yeah, it's definitely like it's bad. But he said just get through these 2 shows, and then we're actually going to go into a programming design phase. We're bringing in a professional programmer. We know that you're a little green. Like this will be okay, and we're going to do it in Vegas. So there's going to be rehearsals for a week. It's like okay. At Caesars, you know. I was like, sure, that's great. I can get through this. So, but there's like 80 moving lights, and I've never run anything close to that big. And I've never been on this rig before.
How many of those were sticky, Robbie?
I literally was wanting to ask that same thing. Because I wanted to know if you'd ever encountered that as well, if it was just us.
I have encountered sticky lights on the handles, though, because like the
entire casings were sticky on these.
Okay, no, never seen that necessarily.
Okay, anyways, 80 moving lights.
Yep.
80 moving lights. And the guy that was setting this up was kind of new, so it took him kind of all day, and he was new too. And so I didn't really have any time to go through the show, and I was just trying to update focus positions because I was new at that. And so like I didn't know hardly anything. So when it comes times for doors, and I haven't even had a chance to walk through these cue lists, well, when I get into it, all of the naming was gone. Craig had intentionally removed all the names so that I couldn't use the show file.
Just to mess with you, or was Craig kind of
well,
a
he's
punk?
like, man, I'm not going to let you use my show file. This is after the fact. I was like, dude, like, what was the deal? He's like, man, I'm not going to just let you use my work. I was like, so anyway, it was rough. So, you know, we're going into a slow song, and I'm hitting go, and it's like, with yellow and gold and flashy and movie. And I was like, oh, like it was a train wreck. And I had the guy just cussing in my ear. I thought for sure I was fired. And they didn't fire me. I was with them for a year.
You hadn't drank a beer yet.
No.
Yeah.
No, and I didn't.
I need one after that show, though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was actually one group I was really, back then, like, I mean, I was 20, so I didn't drink, but at the same time, and just to be frank now, I don't now, but there was a period where I would have a beer here and there, but on that tour specifically, I was really careful to like stay away from all that because all the people that were on the tour wanted me to do all of the bad things, right? So
you're newly married.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to be a Christian on the road with all these folks that are old road dogs, and it was interesting.
How difficult was that? Because we've heard the stories, and like, quite honestly, I believe most things in life to be overhyped. And so when I finally talked to a couple people who like could tell me some of those stories, they were even worse than what they had been hyped to me as. I was blown away at how crazy it gets.
Well, it was Natalie Cole, so it wasn't like, Motley Crue or something. But like, so, I mean, she was a lot of fun to work with. And
she didn't open for Motley Crue? I mean, I would assume they would pair those two artists.
She did actually open once for Tony Bennett, and that was pretty cool because I got to see him in the hallway.
Yeah,
which
Tony's
I was like,
a legend.
Tony Bennett, this is awesome.
And Blake, do you know who Tony Bennett is?
I'm going to keep smiling and nodding so we don't take off Robbie's pace. Keep going.
Well, you hear him every Christmas.
All right.
And you hear her every time you hear Unforgettable, and she goes, Unforgettable. Anyway. So her dad was Nat King Cole. He did all the...
Oh, okay. Cool.
So she did like Pink Cadillac and all these others. Anyway, all that to say, but we had a full orchestra on stage, and like there was a piano player, 2 keyboardists. It was a huge band, and it was a ton of fun. And so, but it was okay. But there was one time I just remember like so back then, like to call Joanna. We had cell phones were pretty new, like, and they were terribly expensive. So having a cell phone in Europe to call her, like, there was no like international trade plan
pre-flip phone, or did it flip?
This was the Nokia like 5150 or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, with the little white diagonal button. Like this was like, because this would have been, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So And because you had to have the international phone, I'm saying that in air quotes.
Yeah.
But like back then, because all phones weren't international. So they would let us borrow it if it was an emergency, but I didn't have my own. So I had a calling card, but I had to have a payphone or a landline to use it, at the hotel.
Of course, you could
or
find
something.
payphones back at this time.
That's right. And so that's how I could call her. So it was hard to communicate with her, but there was one time I was on the bus and like I was so thirsty, I just wanted some water, and we had to do like a 22-hour drive because we were going so far. It was in Europe, and there was nothing on there but hard liquor, wine, and beer, and there were literally no bottles of water, and it was like. Yeah,
That's a recipe for disaster right there.
Yeah, So I mean, that's just kind of how they rolled. Because every time they'd finish at the green room, they would grab whatever was left and throw it on the bus.
Oh, totally.
Because it was paid for. Essentially, it was for the band or for whoever.
That stockpile makes sense. So then, how long did you do that? I'm assuming you went from there to church lighting tech director pretty quick because you were like, I got to get off the road to see my wife. I'm making assumptions here based upon storylines.
Yeah. So the assumption. I didn't. I toured for about a year, and then I quit thinking I was probably going to get fired anyway. Like, I did okay. I learned a ton over that period of time, but I still wasn't at the caliber she needed.
At the rate in which they threw you in with the little nudge that they had given you and just like said, hey, do this, and also we're not even going to help you. It's amazing you made it a year like without getting fired, and then you walked away. Like nerves of steel.
Yeah, it was tons of travel, lots of different consoles, and it was a lot of pay to play dates where we were using somebody else's show, and so I had to like use somebody else's console and so it was interesting. I learned a lot. Like it was really good, really great for experience. But after that, I went into trade shows. A guy that I used to work with at Livelight was doing trade show work, and the reason I went that direction is because you were in one location for weeks at a time. And I was like, well, okay, this is more beneficial for like family. So now I can fly my wife out when I'm there for a period of time because she was still going to college. I was like, so we can at least see each other. I'm not going like place to place to place to place to place. And so
you lighting these trade shows, or you selling lights at trade shows?
Lighting the trade shows,
okay.
doing like
That's a good question.
Like doing the lighting for booths like Intel or Microsoft or 3Com or all those different types of tech.
And do you know Bill Gates? No, man. You would assume he'd be working the booth at these trade shows. Who better to tell Microsoft's story than Bill Gates?
Yeah. No, him and I used to talk about how he was going to take over the world, but it's been a while.
How lazy of him to not work his own booth.
I know.
Lazy guy. So where do you go from there, from the trade show booths? What's the next gig?
Gosh, where did I go from there? Oh, you know what? I went from trade shows. We left California because we wanted to buy a house, and I just wasn't making enough money out there to be able to do that. It was just too expensive because the company I was working for was in the East Bay, like East San Francisco Bay Area. So we moved to Texas just because we knew someone out there, thought we'd give it a go. And
what part of Texas?
Fort Worth.
Okay.
So, and then I quit and sold cars for like 6 months. Got completely out of the industry for a little while, and then went back into it working at Daystar Television Network there. So I was working for a studio for like, I guess it was like 4.5 years, and I helped with lighting. I ran camera for every live show and every broadcast we did. And then there for a while, I actually jumped completely out of lighting and did video editing solely for like a year, just to try something new. And so then from there, we moved to Colorado just because we wanted to. And that's when I went to work for New Life Church in Colorado Springs, the mega church. And I worked out there for 4.5 years, something like that.
Okay, so you're out on the road, you go to trade shows, you're doing, you're working for a production company, and then you jump into church life. What is like, and you're at a mega church there. How does church life differ from all the other stuff you've done?
Man, that is a good question. I think the pace was different for sure. It's with Daystar when I was there, like that pace was pretty brutal because it was like, oh hey, so and so's in town and we're gonna do a music set tomorrow and you have to stay until it's done. It was like, so we're just, I don't care what it costs, do whatever, pay whatever you guys have to overtime, just get it done,
Budget's not an issue, it has to be done.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot. So there was a lot of last minute stuff like that, and it was just stressful. It felt like it was a little bipolar, that place was. But at New Life, when I started, I was coming right before Christmas.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, and they were about to do their big Christmas production, and so
Did you have to jump in
I
as
did.
the LD?
I did, and
Like you had to run those shows?
well, essentially, we had to still like hang it, design it, program it, and all of that. And so there was a guy there, a great guy, a guy named Evan. He had been volunteering for a long time, and then they'd kind of hired him. Then the two main guys left, and when they did, he was the guy. But like he still didn't really have much experience under his belt, you know. And this is a building that seats 7,700, has like 85-foot ceilings. You know, I mean, it was like it was the biggest building as far as a venue next to the arena in town. It was huge.
Wow. That's a church.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So anyway, they go big, you know. So there was like these water fountains in the front of the stage that were MIDI controlled, and we would do this suck drape that came out of the ceiling. They would fly people on silks, and you know, it was just there was fake ice, right? So people were ice skating on the fake ice. We had low fog machines. So it was a lot going on. So anyway, all that to say, the pace was different. It was really heavy in the beginning, but after that, then it was just a lot of time to kind of prepare and working with volunteers. And I feel like it slowed down a little bit, and it was more relational in that way. A lot more time spent with volunteers. And
Plan and panic, the two modes you go through.
So, Robby, I know a lot of smaller church tech directors, they'll see New Life or other mega churches like Willow Creek or Church of the Highlands. They'll see some of these productions, they'll go to them, or they'll, watch them on TV or the internet, and they'll think, oh man, like they must have like 57 fog machines in storage and they just pull them out for Christmas. Like, do all these churches have all this gear, or?
No, they rent it. I mean, a lot of them, some of them own it. Like New Life actually did own the low foggers because they used them every Easter and Christmas. So it made sense to have CO2 low foggers. And they would do this big like Easter production called The Thorn that it was like a 400 person cast. So like they would buy these because they would do it weekend after weekend after weekend. It was just cheaper. But in most cases, no, we rent a lot of low foggers for Christmas and Easter from Fort Wall.
How big is the storage facility holding all those guys?
Where?
The foggers you rent.
At
at
New
our
Life
place?
or at
Yeah.
Fort Wall?
Oh, well, I mean,
I just jumped the shark. Sorry.
I know.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah.
Why don't you tell us what you're doing now,
Yeah,
Robby?
Yeah. So anyway, okay, I'll fast forward so that make the long story short. All through all of this, right, I was working freelance all the time. So I was never just with Daystar, or just with the church, or just with Natalie Cole, or I was still freelancing. And so I got a lot of experience working on, shoots for a new curriculum that we were going to do, because David C. Cook was in town, and like we did stuff with Integrity. We got to do these Paul Baloche video shoots and like all this other kind of stuff. So a lot of other things that I got to dabble in while I was there. And then I went to tour with Jesus Culture. I did this one big event with them, and then that turned into essentially going full time with them as a contractor. And I went. So from the church, I ended up leaving the church, and then I was full time with Jesus Culture for about 3 years, and then moved to California, and then from there decided to get off the road because as our kids were getting older, and then I went to work for a company called DPS that was in Southern California that does essentially what Fort Wall does, rented, light, sound, video, did production and that sort of thing. And so, and then from there went from DPS to VER because DPS folded and VER acquired them. VER has now been acquired by PRG, and before that happened, I left and went to Fort Wall, and that was about 3.5 years ago. So now and so we moved to Tennessee, which we're here now from California, because when I took the job with VER, I'd agreed to that with them. Like they either wanted me in Texas or in Nashville, and Nashville had always been on the list, for production towns as a cool town to be in. And so we'd already done Texas, and I was like, didn't want to go back. And so here we are.
So Fort Wall rents lights, visual elements.
Yeah, I was like thinking about how to say best what we do. And essentially our motto is large enough to service, small enough to care. And we are an equipment rentals sales production company specializing in lighting, video, and rigging solutions, including like automation and things. And then,
and for your boss, you're definitely not reading this off the website. This is all
totally. This
memorized.
is actually on my note. I wrote that.
Okay.
So, there we go.
So yeah, I should probably go into marketing, but
You should. It was a good line.
yeah, thanks. And so we also work in integration, like with they worked on like Star Wars Land, and that we've got projects going over on in Dubai right now. They helped with SoFi Stadium kind of infrastructure stuff that's going on there.
Okay, pause. So I flew over LA a few weeks ago, and I looked down, and here's SoFi flashing across the top of a stadium.
Wow.
Do you know how that works? Do you know what that thing is?
No, I don't. It must be, I don't actually know. So because that team is completely separate within our organization, and I actually don't know how much involvement we had. But.
All right. I've never flown over a stadium and seen like a moving screen.
That's awesome.
Essentially, maybe it's projection from underneath or something. But
my guess is it's an LED wall ceiling. If I had to guess, I could be wrong.
Wow.
But.
Can you just rain on that though? If it's
it wasn't the field, right? The field didn't.
No, it was the roof.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
What are some of the? I mean, going back to churches, like, do you guys outfit churches for Easter, Christmas?
We do. There's we do a lot of rental and sales with churches, So with Four Wall, we also have uselighting.com, which you all know, where we that's kind of another arm of the company where we sell our used equipment. Actually, our rental equipment. The reason we can keep it so new is because we turn it over about every 2 to 3 to 4 years, and
before it gets sticky.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah. So before it gets sticky, and before we can even have that conversation, it is in somebody else's hands. That's right.
Our hands.
No.
And thank you for that.
No. I was going to say, that's kind of the funny thing is that we're competitors, I guess, in a sense, but you're just so likable. We were like, we got to have Robby on the pod.
Yeah, we are, but then again, like we could also be a source for you guys in some ways. I guess it depends on if you're.
Depends on how favorable we feel about lights at the time.
That's right.
We're just continuously, as we get in more gear, assessing what we do and don't like and fine tuning all the time. So. Yeah. You worked at a church for a time. You have a really cool story between going from on the road to the church, now at Four Wall. You've done the whole gamut, really. We have a lot of we call them church refugees.
Church staff.
Church staff.
Why is that so hard to say? Church staff refugees.
There we go.
It's a mouthful.
Boom, boom. We got it. Okay, so for better or worse, we got a lot of them. People who have worked in the church, and they love the church, but they're like, I'd like to serve the church, not work in the church. I obviously had to leave after the mass spill incident that resulted in all the sticky lights. So that's why I left. But
yeah, they fired you after that one.
Oh, totally. Other people just burn out. So you're still fighting the good, or like you left. What encouragement would you give people who are still fighting the good fight? Because you still see them all the time. And you see them in their most stressful times. Now that I think about it, because Christmas and Easter are like, that's the time. So what encouragement would you give them when they're still out there fighting the fight?
Well, I've really enjoyed being on this side because I was a designer, right? I was an operator. I was a programmer. I did all of those things. And I really enjoy that piece, and I do miss it at times. But it's been fun being on this side, being able to service the people that are in the position I used to be in. Because it's easy to understand what they're going through and what they, kind of the challenges they have, and understanding budget issues and all of those types of things, right? So, I mean, for them, I would say with the work that they're doing, and this is, I guess I could say more philosophical, but like, I will say for me, it was very much a job because my skills and what I had and what I could do, I was performing the work that I was given to do, right? And I would say, like, if someone's working at the church, and they're skilled in their work, then they need to be paid accordingly because they need to be taken care of, and it needs to be fair, right? And I would say don't assume that you should don't assume that working for the church is the same as serving God. Don't assume that working for the church is the same as your personal relationship with Jesus, because it's not. It really isn't. They're completely different. And what you do when you're outwardly doing that, like that, and I'll say this because I've worked in plenty of different ministries, when they try and twist your arm to say, hey, the work you're doing at the church is just like serving God, so that needs to be your very first priority. It's like, no. Like, my family is going to come before this, And I think that that's important to make sure those priorities in place. And if they're not, then you need to take a step back and consider that, And a lot of times the burnout, I think, comes sometimes from they just keep giving and keep giving and keep giving because there's this level of like guilt maybe if they don't, because they feel like then they're not serving the Lord or something. But it is completely separate.
Yeah, the church can definitely burn out people if they're overworked and overstressed and underappreciated.
But to encourage, let me say, to encourage people, it is really great work you guys are doing.
Oh, I mean, they're rock stars. Like
they are.
We marvel at how they handle it all.
Well, and let me say this, coming in the professional world, and I know you all have seen this, I was thinking about this on the way over here. I can't count how many people have come from the church world that are now working in mainstream and they crush it. And it's because the church guys can roll with the punches in every situation, keep their cool, be a good hang, and get it done. Where I can't tell you, I've worked with plenty of people where it's like, I can't work in this condition, it's like if they don't have exactly what they have to have. But, when the pastor comes in and hands you, oh, hey, instead we're changing the set list right now, you're like, oh, okay, and then you just roll with the punches. And
luckily most church tech directors work in the perfect conditions.
Right.
They have nothing to complain about.
No,
everything
right.
they could ever want.
That's right.
Okay, Robby, we throw this question in to guests a lot, and nobody's ever answered it, but apparently you have. So we ask, top 5 albums of all time, and you shocked us. I mean, you're a lighting guy. What do you know about music, right?
Right, totally.
Don't let him talk to you that way.
Yeah.
Fight back.
Okay, so hit it.
Well,
top 5 of all time.
This was really tough, and I was thinking, okay, which ones have I played out when I was playing out an album, right? And a lot of them go back to compact discs, or even before that.
Ooh, real throwback. Any cassettes in there?
Yeah, no, that would have been a good one, like Eye to Eye, like Michael W. Smith or something.
Man.
That was actually my first concert.
Go West, Young Man.
Yeah. Oh, Go West, Young Man. Yeah, I used to play that one out too. Wear that one out. But I put so here they are. I love Audio Adrenaline Bloom. That's just a really easy listen.
Okay. And these don't all have to be Christian.
I know.
Okay.
And then I when Switchfoot's Nothing Is Sound came out, I just listened to that a ton because I was videoing at the time. And so I remember I would have it on the background as I was working through things and when I didn't have to worry about sound or whatever. So I really enjoyed that album. And Counting Crows, August and Everything.
Oh, yes.
And
I
everything
love that.
after. Yeah.
So you're getting a little less Christian every time.
A little less Christian. Yeah.
And are we coming back to Motley Crue? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You ever heard of AC/DC? No, I'm kidding. No, and then Creed, Human Clay.
Oh, wow.
That one was a good one because the sound was different. And
I'm proud of you for admitting that.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
It is.
Yeah.
And then Pearl Jam 10.
Oh, yeah.
And I was trying to think, I really liked this 5 Iron Frenzy album and I couldn't find it. But beyond that, I would say even now I still love Weezer's first album with Sweater.
Yeah.
The Weezer
album
that was blue. Yeah.
Yes.
1994. And
amazing.
I kind of like anything and everything as long as it's I really appreciate music that has that actually was hard to do. I'm not into the whole, I don't know. I want to hear musicians play. I like Brad Paisley for his country music because he's incredible guitarist.
You want to hear that talent stretched to the max and
right.
see what came out the other end.
So I almost feel really guilty throwing the tech takeaway at you because you spun so much gold on the encouragement to the tech directors already. That really feels like a takeaway. But I'm going to ask for a second because if you already had one great answer, I'm going to ask for a second one because I want another great answer. What's something that church techs that you would recommend they do either philosophically, which we already got a great one on not allowing your relationship with God to be confused with your job, but maybe it's technical. Maybe it's another philosophical one, something to make their services a little better, a little easier.
Well, that's a good question for tech directors. I would say so specifically for lighting.
Sure, that's all in there. Yeah.
This was a big one that I kind of harped on when I was doing it professionally, when I was running lights for churches or for worship and all that kind of thing. I'm not big on putting lights in people's eyes all the time. I feel like if it's in their eyes, you have to move it through and it has to be for a moment and it has to hit and it has to be timed in very intentionally. Same with strobing and all that. So whenever I'm sitting there and I'm I'm running lights, I intentionally focus a lot of those positions on me because if they're not on me, I won't feel when people are like, oh gosh, I'm getting a headache. These lights have been staring at me the whole time. So I focus them on myself and I'm a part of that audience look, right? So that I don't wear myself out because I want to be tasteful because if I'm doing lights for church or for worship, it's not about me and about the lighting show. It was about just accenting what was happening with the music and just the overall experience. And so anyway, That's one big one.
No, that's genius. I cannot tell you how many times I've like squinted my eyes. I went to a mega church. Well, we already said New Vision. I had to squint my eyes a couple of times growing up where I was like, I can't see. So that's great.
Well, because like then the lighting guy's back there taking a picture, but the lights aren't blinding him. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
making yourself one of them, one of the experience.
Exactly. How does it feel to me? Because that's how they're feeling. And I got to make sure that, or they could even feel less because I'm a lighting guy. Like I do this for a living, So I don't know. You just kind of have to look through their eyes. Empathy.
I like that. Well, man, Robby, I appreciate you coming on. This has been amazing.
Yes.
We'll have to have you back. And I just appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.
Toby, the only thing I like having blasted into my eyes?
If it's not your wife's beautiful face, then I would assume it's the Church Gear early service.
It is. I want that put on at maximum volume. My computer screen as bright as it gets every single Monday morning.
Does it actually come with volume?
I meant maximum brightness there, but I said volume. The stuff on it is so great. It speaks to me. So I do hear some volume.
Well played.
Early service every Monday.